Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, want to seek the blessings of Radha Madhava, Radha Shyam Sundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Nrsimhadev Bhagavan, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Gauritai Tulsimani Haridas Thakur, Guru Parampara Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. So, thank you so much for joining. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 17th chapter, which is the history of Kaliya. Yesterday we talked about how Kaliya was banished from the Yamuna by Sri Krishna. So today we hear about the history of Kaliya. This chapter describes how Kaliya left the island of the snakes and how the sleeping residents of Vrindavan were saved from the forest fire. So when Parikshit Maharaj inquired about Kaliya's leaving Ramanak island, the abode of the serpents, and about why Garud acted inimically towards him, Srila Sukadeva Goswami replied as follows. All the serpents on the island were afraid of being devoured by Garud. To placate him, every month they would leave various offerings for him at the foot of a banyan tree. So to stop Kaliya killing them all, they would leave some offering. They would leave a snake or two for him to eat. But Kaliya, puffed up as he was with false pride, would eat these offerings himself. Hearing of this, so this is Kaliya. Kaliya was very puffed up. He would eat these offerings. Hearing of this, Garud became furious. He went to kill Kaliya. Whereupon the snake began biting the great bird. Garud fiercely beat him with his wing, sending Kaliya fleeing for his life to a lake adjoining the Yamuna river. This is before Kaliya was in the Yamuna. And this is the history behind why so when Garud, the great devotee carrier of Vishnu, understood that Kaliya was eating the offered sacrifices meant for him, he became very angry and quickly rushed to kill the offensive serpent. Kaliya tried to fight Garud, and faced him with his many hoods and poisonous sharp teeth. Kali attempted to bite him, and Garud, the son of Takshya, in great anger and with great force, deserving the carrier of Lord Vishnu, because Garud is the carrier of Vishnu, he struck the body of Kaliya with his effulgent golden wings. You can see his huge golden wings. Kaliya, who is also known as the son of Kadrushuta, who is also known as Kadrushuta, son of Kadru, immediately fled to the lake known as Kalyadaha, which Garud could not approach. Garud could not approach that lake. Then there was a reason why. This is the reason. Prior to this above incident, Garud had once come to the Yamuna and started eating some fish. Saubari Rishi had tried to stop him. But Garud, agitated by hunger, had refused to heed the sage's prohibitions. And in response, the sage had cursed Garud that if he ever came here again, he would immediately die. Kaliya had heard of this, and thus he lived this place in the Yamuna without fear, because he knew Garud cannot approach. In the end, however, he was driven out by Sri Krishna. Now, Shaubari Rishi actually should not have cursed Garud. A great yogi known as Shaubari Muni, who used to meditate within the water and who was sympathetic with the fish, he asked Garud not to come there and disturb the fish. He did not disobey the order of the great yogi. One day, Garud carried off one of the big fish who was their leader, and Saubari Muni cursed Garud. Henceforth, from this day, if Garud comes here to catch fish, then I say this with all my strength, he will die, immediately die. So really, he shouldn't have cursed Garud, because the natural instinct of the bird, eagle, is to eat fish. So that was not the right thing to do. Anyway, and that's why Shobari Rishi later on, um, he stopped his meditation when he saw two fish mating, and he became entangled in household life because of that curse of to Garud. Anyway, when Lord Balaram and all the residents of Vrindavan saw that Krishna rise up out of the lake, beautifully decorated with many different gems and ornaments, they embraced him in great pleasure. Even the dried up trees came back to life. The priests and learned Brahmins then told Nanda Maharaj, the king of the cowherds, that although his son had been caught in the grips of Kaliya, it was by the king's good fortune that he was now free again, and to assure that Krishna will always be free from danger. Nanda Maharaj should give charity to the Brahmins. With a satisfied mind, Nand Maharaj then very gladly gave them gifts of cows and gold. Balaram lifted Krishna upon his lap and repeatedly looked at him. Yashodamai also placed him on her lap, crying constant torrents of tears as she repeatedly embraced him, because they thought he had been defeated by Kaliya, because he was in the water for a very long time. Because the people of Vrindavan were quite worn out by hunger, thirst, and fatigue, they spent that night on the banks of the Yamuna. So they didn't go home. They ate and they drank there and they slept there. But in the middle of the night, a fire happened to blaze up within the forest, which had become dry due to the hot season. As the fire surrounded the sleeping inhabitants of Vrindavan, they suddenly awoke and rushed to Sri Krishna for protection. Anything, anytime, any problem, they had this natural inclination to go to Krishna, even though he was a young boy. They just knew this boy somehow will protect us. They didn't even think he was God. Then the unlimitedly powerful Lord Sri Krishna, seeing his dear relatives and friends so distressed, immediately swallowed up the terrible forest fire. So he does this two times. So this is the first time. After Kaliya, I'm just repeating it a little bit. After punishing Kaliya, since it was almost night and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cows and calves, were very tired, they decided to take their rest on the river bank. In the middle of the night, while they were taking rest, there was a great forest fire. They immediately took shelter of Krishna, being compassionate upon his own townspeople. He immediately swallowed up the whole forest fire and saved them. Lesson to learn. This was not impossible for Krishna because he is unlimited. He has unlimited power to do anything he desires. Very easy for him. Chapter 18. Lord Balaram slays the demon Pralamba. So the killing of Pralambasura is described in this chapter. While playing happily in Vrindavan, Lord Balaram climbed up on the shoulders of the demon Pralamba and struck his head with his fist, destroying him. So while Krishna and Balaram were thus enjoying life in Vrindavan, the summer season gradually appeared. Yet because the Supreme Lord was personally staying in Vrindavan along with Balaram, summer manifested the quality of spring. So summer can be very, very hot, especially in Vrindavan. But in this situation, the summer actually manifested the quality of spring. It was quite cool and refreshing. Sri Vrindavan was even During the summer, decorated with all qualities of spring. In Vrindavan, the loud sound of waterfalls covered the crickets' noises, and the cluster of trees constantly moistened by spray from those waterfalls beautified the entire area. The wind wafting over the waves of the lakes and flowing rivers carried away the pollen of many varieties of lotuses and water lilies, which then cooled the entire Vrindavan area. With their flowing waves, the deep river is drenching the banks, making them damp and muddy. Thus the rays of the sun, which were as fierce as poison, could not evaporate the earth's sap or patch. And it was nice green grass because of the water. Flowers beautifully decorated the forest of Vrindavan, and many varieties of animals and birds filled it with sound. The peacocks and bees sang, and the cuckoos and cranes cooed. Hmm. So just another summary of we just said. Inhabitants of Vrindavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high summer temperatures. Why? Because Krishna and Balaram were there. So naturally, spring manifests itself. The lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses, and the various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there. And the air blowing in Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Yamuna, the lakes, and the waterfalls touch the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and the bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing nicely. So this is a manifestation, of course, of the spiritual world, and it is very beautiful. Krishna with Balaram entered the forest of Vrindavan as he played his flute, decorating themselves with newly grown leaves, along with peacock feathers, garlands, clusters of flower buds, and colored minerals. Balaram, Krishna, and their cowherd friends danced and wrestled with and sang. Krishna and Balaram played with their cowherd friends by whirling around, leaping, hurling, slapping, and fighting in a friendly way, of course. Sometimes the boys would play with bilva or um, kumbha foods, as well as various games. They would sometimes jump around like frogs, sometimes play various jokes, sometimes ride in swings, and sometimes imitate Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna would become absorbed in playing various sports, surrounded by Balaram and all the cowherd boys. So this was um, a wonderful pastimes taking place between Krishna and his eternal friends, Gopa friends. Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure, blowing his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balaram and other cowherd boys and cows, entered the beautiful forest of Vrindavan to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resembled peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated with saffron chalk. Sometimes they would wrestle, sing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. Sometimes they were dancing, and singing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. While Krishna danced, some of the cowherd boys sang, and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo horns or clapped their hands, praising Krishna. My dear brother, you are dancing so very nicely. Sometimes, after playing so much, they would all just sit and enjoy Krishna playing the flute. Krishna would become so happy when his friends enjoyed with him and Balaram like this. the lesson, Krishna's main job is to enjoy and make sure everybody is having fun. That's God's job. Have fun, make sure everybody's having fun. He's got nothing else to do. Anyway, one day they were intently dancing, singing and playing when a demon named Palamba entered their midst disguised as a cowherd boy. The omniscient Lord Krishna saw through the disguise, but even as he thought of how to kill the demon, he treated him as a friend. Krishna then suggested to the young friends and Baladev that they play a game involving contending parties. So there will be competition going on. Taking the role of leaders, Krishna and Balaram divided the boys into two groups and determined that the losers would have to carry the winners on their shoulder. Thus, when Sridhama and Vrishabha, members of Balaram's party, were victorious, Krishna and another boy in his party carried them on their shoulders. So, this is what eternal pastimes are. The boys played at catching ball with bell-shaped fruits and round amalika. They played blindman's bluff, challenging and touching one another. Sometimes they imitated the forest deer and various kinds of birds, croaking frogs, and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. In this way, Balaram and Krishna, along with all their friends, enjoyed playing all kinds of sports. So, Palambasura, disguised as a coward boy, thought that the unconquerable Lord Sri Krishna would be too great an opponent to contend with. So the demon fought with Balaram instead and was defeated. Taking Lord Balaram on his back, Palambasura began to walk away very swiftly. But Balaram became as heavy as Mount Sumeru, and the demon, unable to carry him, had to reveal his true demoniac form. When Balaram saw this terrible form, he struck the demon a ferocious blow on the head with his fist. This blow shattered Palambasura's head, just as lightning bolts hurled by the king of a demigod shatters mountains. The demon repeatedly vomited blood and then fell upon the ground. When the cowherd boys saw Lord Balaram return, they joyfully embraced and congratulated him as the demigods showered garlands of flowers from the heavens and glorified him. So this is just a summary here. This Pralambasura, he had entered the arena of the cowherd boys. His purpose was to kidnap both Krishna and Balaram. This is what he was trying to do. Because he came disguised as a cowherd boy. Krishna called his friends, they ordered, and he knew, Krishna knew. And then they started playing in pairs. And eventually Balaram took this Palambasura out by thumping him on the head. The demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful. But Balaram became as heavy as a mountain when the demon tried to carry him out. And he struck him on the head. When the demon fell, he made a tremendous sound. All the boys then rushed to the spot. Being astounded by the ghastly scene, they began praising Balaram with the words, "Well done, well done." He was 6 years and 10 months old, Krishna. Chapter 19. Swallowing the forest fire. This is the second time he's swallowing the forest fire. So, one day, the cowherd boys became absorbed in sporting and without noticing allowed the cows to wander into a dense forest. Suddenly a forest fire blazed up, and to escape its flames, the cows took refuge in the grove of sharp canes. When the cowherd boys missed their animals, they were searching for them, following their hoofprints, and the trail of blades of grass and other plants they had trampled or had broken with their teeth. Krishna called out for the cows. Hearing the sound of their own names, the cows were overjoyed and called out to the Lord in reply. Finally, the boys found the cows and removed them from the cane forest. But by that time, the forest fire had grown strong and was threatening both the boys and the cows. Thus, the cowherd boys took shelter of Sri Krishna, the master of all mystic power, who told them to close their eyes. Close your eyes, he said. Close your eyes. I don't want you to see what I'm going to do. They did so, and in a moment he had swallowed up the fierce fire, forest fire, and brought them all back to the Bandira tree mentioned in the last chapter. Seeing this wonderful display of mystic potency, the cowherd boys thought Krishna must be a demigod. They began to praise him. Then they all returned home. The young gopis took the greatest pleasure in seeing Govinda come home, since for them even a moment without his association seemed like 100 ages. So this is a summary. The forest fire had grown, taken over, and Krishna came to rescue the cowherd boys. And he told them to close their eyes. Why? Why did he say to them, close your eyes? Krishna asked the Gopas to close their eyes, as he didn't want them to tell Yashoda that he ate fire. They already told him he eats dirt. Now they're going to tell him he eats fire. He's going to get in trouble. So he said, close your eyes. I don't want you to see what I'm doing. So why did Krishna eat the fire twice? First time, he didn't ask the Bijbasis to close eyes because he wanted to show the greatness of Bijbasis, that even after seeing this Ashwarya, this majestic form where he eats this fire, it never took over their view of Krishna. And we can contrast this to Arjun. When he saw the universal form, he was in awe and reverence. But the Bijbasis, this is Krishna, he does these things. But he's our life and soul. Second time he asked the Gopas to close eyes because once bitten, twice shy. He ate dirt once, they told Yashoda. So now drinking fire or eating the fire would have got into more trouble. Krishna drank the fire rather than through the eyes, etc. He drank it. Yagya Kund is the mouth of Vishnu and the fire is the tongue. So to prove the Vedic principles, he drank. So he ate the fire.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes. Prabhupada.
Do you think did he had that strength?
Oh yeah.
To eat
Yeah.
that fire?
Of course. He can do anything. Remember, he had the whole universal form in his mouth when you saw
Yes.
So this fire is nothing for him.
But he asked everybody to close their eyes.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to let Yasodama know.
Yeah. she would have given him a hard time. You eating dirt, now you're eating fire.
Yeah.
So
was he all right inside afterward?
Oh yeah, of course. This is a supreme Lord. No problem. For him, no problem.
Did it? Okay, let's go carry on. Did he take the fire out later or no?
Yeah, because his body is not like our body.
Oh yeah.
His body is spiritual, completely spiritual.
Okay.
So he doesn't have the limitations that we do. We can only see with our eyes. We can see with his ears. He can do anything. He can eat with his eyes, for example. So when we offer him prasad, when we offer him bhoga, he makes it prasad by looking at it.
Yeah.
So yes, he can do anything he wants.
All right. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Chapter 20. Let's have a look at chapter 20. We've got a bit of time, I think. Yeah. The rainy season and the autumn in Vrindavan. So this is a really wonderful chapter. A whole book is written on this by Srila Prabhupada. This description of the rainy and autumn seasons. The elder cowherd men and ladies were amazed to hear the forest fire and killing of the demon Palamba. And they conclude that Krishna and Balaram must be exalted demigods who had appeared in Vrindavan. Then the life-giving rainy season began, and the sky rumbled with thunder and lightning flashed. Because after the summer, this rain is very welcome. Even today, even now, when it's hot, it's too hot, and the rains come and cool everything down. Dense clouds covering the sky were like the soul covered by the modes of nature. After drinking up the water for 8 months, the sun now released the water. Clouds are shaken and swept across the sky, just as a merciful person who gives their lives for the world. This is an interesting point. Like Prabhupada, he gave everything. He came to the West and gave up Vrindavan for us. Just like that, the clouds that sweep across the sky and shower nice water. The emaciated earth was nourished just like a person who had undergone austerities became nourished after getting the fruits of his austerities. The glowworms shone in the evening twilight while the stars were covered. Just as in the age of Kali, the predominance of sinful activities allows atheistic doctrines to overshadow the true knowledge of the Vedas. This age is such a crazy age. There's hardly any pious activities going on, mainly just sinful activities. The frogs start croaking upon hearing the thunder, just like the devotees begin chanting when called by great spiritual teacher. With the advent of the rainy season, the insignificant streams which had become dry began to swell and then stray from their proper courses like the body, property, and money of a man controlled by the urges of his senses. The earth became beautiful with green grass, red insects, and white mushrooms. Thus the earth appears like a person who has suddenly become rich. The fields gave joy to the farmers, but not to the materialistic city people who fail to understand how everything is under the control of the Supreme. All creatures become attractive by drinking the rainwater, just as devotees become beautiful by serving the Lord. Such a beautiful examples. As devotees' minds remained peaceful during difficulties, the mountains were not disturbed by the heavy striking of the rain. In the rainy season, the roads become covered with grass and mud. Similarly, neglected scriptures become covered and corrupted by the passage of time. Lightning moving from one cloud to another cloud was like lusty women moving from one man to another man. As a rainbow has no string, it's the curved bow of Indra. So when the Lord appears, he is free from material contact. So the Lord, when he comes here, he has no contact. He brings the spiritual world with him. He is unlike ordinary persons because he remains free from all material qualities and independent of all material conditions. As the moon was covered by clouds which were illumined by the moon's rays, so the living entity is covered by false ego, which itself is illuminated by consciousness. This is such an incredible point. So moon gets covered by clouds, but actually the cloud cannot cover the moon. So similarly, we are covered by this false ego, but actually our consciousness can never be covered. We have to regain that original consciousness. The peacocks danced when seeing the clouds, just as a distressed family man becomes joyful on seeing pure devotees. After the thin and dry trees drank the newly fallen rainwater through their feet, their various bodily features blossomed. Similarly, one whose body has grown thin and weak from austerity again exhibits his healthy bodily features upon enjoying the material objects gained through that austerity. The cranes continued living on the river banks, although much debris was there, just as materialistic people remain at home despite so many disturbances. This is an interesting point. Towards the end of our life, it's recommended that we should leave home, go to a holy place and live there peacefully. But it's so hard to disentangle oneself from family life. Very, very hard. The flood waters broke through the irrigation dikes in the agricultural fields, just as in Kali Yuga, the atheist false theories break down the boundaries of Vedic injunctions. The clouds gave water for all beings' benefit, just as kings give charity to the city. When the forest became full of fruits, Krishna and Balaram, with their friends, went there to enjoy. The Lord saw the joyful Aborigine girls of the forest, the trees dripping sweet sap, and the mountains, waterfalls, a lot of waterfalls. When it rained, the Lord would enter a cave or the hollow of a tree to play and to eat roots and fruits. Lord Krishna would take his meal of boiled rice and yogurt sent from home in the company of Lord Shankarshan, that's Balaram, and the cowherd boys who regularly ate with him. They would all sit down to eat on a large stone near the water. Lord Krishna watched the contented bulls, calves, cows sitting on the green grass, thus observing the beauty and opulence of Vrindavan's rainy season. Krishna offered respect for that season. So even Krishna loves that season, the rainy season. It's very beautiful. Vrindavan forest improved from the rains. Oops. And was full of with ripened dates, mangoes, blackberries, and other fruits. Lord Krishna and his boyfriends and Lord Balaram entered the forest to enjoy the new seasonal atmosphere. The cows being fed by new grass became very healthy, and the milk bags were all very full. Lord Krishna called them by name. They would immediately come out of affection. In their joyful condition, the milk flowed from their bags. Krishna was very pleased when passing through Vrindavan forest by the side of Govardhan Hill. So after 7 years, they moved to Nandgaon. So they came from Gokul to Vrindavan to Nandgaon. While Krishna and Keshav were living in Vrindavan, the fall season, the autumn season arrived with its cloudless sky, clear water, and gentle wind. The autumn season revived the lotus flowers and restored the various bodies of water to the original purity, just as devotional service purifies the mind of the fallen yogis when they return to it. So bhakti yoga is so powerful. Autumn cleaned the earth of its covering of of mud, and purified the contaminated water in the same way that loving service rendered to Krishna frees the members of the 4 spiritual orders from their respective troubles. The clouds, having given up all they possess, shone with purified effulgence, just like the peaceful sages who had given up all material desires are free from sinful propensities. During this season, the mountains sometimes released their pure water and sometimes did not, just as experts in transcendental science sometimes give the nectar of transcendental knowledge, and sometimes they don't. As a miserly person overly observed in family life suffers because he cannot control his senses, the fish swimming in the shallow water have to suffer the autumn sun heat. With the arrival of autumn, the ocean and lakes become still, just like a sage who stopped all material activities and gave up recitation of Vedic mantras. The autumn moon, relieved of all creatures of the heat of the sun's ray, just as wisdom relieves a person of the misery caused by identifying with the material body, and as Lord Mukunda relieves Vrindavan ladies of distress of the separation from him. The full moon shone in the sky, surrounded by stars, just as Krishna shone brilliantly on the earth, surrounded by all the Brichnis. By the influence of the autumn season, all the cows, doe, women, female birds become fertile and were followed by their respective mates in search of sexual enjoyment. just as activities performed for the service of the Lord are automatically followed by beneficial results. When the autumn season rose, all the lotus flowers blossomed, except the night blooming kumut. Just as in the presence of the strong king, everyone becomes fearless, except the thieves. In all the towns and villages, people held great festivals, performing the Vedic fire sacrifice for honoring and tasting the first grains of the new harvest. The earth was beautified by the presence of Krishna and Balaram. The merchants, sages, kings, and brahmachari students, kept in by the rain, were at last free to go out and attain their desired objects, just as those who achieve material perfection in this life can. When the proper time comes, leave the material body and attain their respective forms. A person who is intelligent but does not believe in God is like a beautiful flower which has no fragrance. What's the use of a flower if it has no fragrance? So that's the end of chapter 20. Any questions, any comments? We did 4 chapters today. It's a quick run through. Okay, we can stop there. Srimad Bhagavad Puran ki jai.